When I decided to go for a master's in the UK, I honestly did not know what to expect. I knew that it was going to be a different experience, but I didn't realize how different it was going to be. Hi guys, my name is Wande. In today's video, I'll be talking about some of the culture shock that I experienced while I was getting my master's degree in the UK. The first thing I would say is that if you're choosing a course, make sure that you choose a course that you can actually do. A lot of people choose courses just because, oh, jackpot. They don't realize how thorough those courses can actually be. And the fact that you have to pass all of your courses, you have to make sure that you pass all your assessments before you can even have a chance at your post-study work visa, that's your PSW. A lot of people have gotten into problems because they probably felt they could pay for their assignments. They ended up with plagiarism issues. Some of them even ended up failing. So keep that in mind. Now, into the main gist of the video. The first thing I noticed was how different the teacher and student interaction was. Coming from Nigeria, you're used to a system whereby your lecturers are up here and you're down here. Moving to the UK, it wasn't like that. There was a mutual respect, mutual understanding. I'm going to the UK with the mindset of, I'm going to go and do yes sir, good morning sir, good morning ma. And I was surprised at the fact that, first of all, you call them by their first names. It doesn't matter. We had some of them in their 50s, in their 60s, and you call them by their first name. Me that I'm a Yoruba girl that I like to do respecting. It took some time before I could get used to it. Another set of people that I noticed that struggled with that a lot were the Indians. They will always say like, oh yes ma'am. But we would see other students, should I call them British students? They would just be very comfortable calling them, maybe their name is Elizabeth, Sarah, they just say it the way it is. That was like a huge culture difference for me. The fact that you go from a system where you're literally afraid of your lecturers to one where your lecturers just see you as a regular person and you guys communicate very easily on a one-to-one basis. Another thing I realized was that on the first day of class, I took a notebook to be able to write notes. I couldn't write anything because their style of teaching was very different. The focus is on critical thinking and emphasis is more on how you can apply whatever you're learning into real life. Even when I was jotting things down, it wasn't things from the class. It was probably points and tips and other things that will help me when I'm doing my works. I couldn't write. When I was in Unilag, I used to be a notes warrior. People used to literally borrow my notes. People used to photocopy my notes. Anybody that knows me knows this. It was a huge difference for me going from that to just listening and more conversational style of teaching. They don't expect you to sit down there and be looking at them. They actually want to talk to you. They want to know how is it in your country. They are inquisitive about you. Back to my point on student-teacher relationship. I was a student rep during my time, so we would have meetings with lecturers, faculty, and department heads just to kind of ask us how we're doing, asking us for feedback on how they are teaching, if we're understanding, if we have any problems. It's a bit of a shock to me because it just shows a certain kind of humility that I don't really see or I've never really seen. And the thing is, they really take all of the feedback well. So that was very interesting to me. At these meetings, we would have pizza, snacks, drinks. It was always a fun meeting to have. I remember how nervous I used to feel when I had to sit with lecturers back then in uni. I was an ESCO, but even though I was more of a quiet person, so I wasn't really out there. People that knew me. But I remember every time you had to go, maybe you're going to see your HOD or you're going to see someone in your department, the way you have to be moving carefully so that you're not going to say the one that they will use to change it for you. There's none of that. And that was when I learned that fear has no place in education. Whoever is saying that your students need to be afraid of you before you can impart or before they even respect you, it's not necessarily true. I never saw anybody get disrespected. I remember after my graduation, I had gone back to school for something. I don't remember what it was now. And then I went to a lecturer's office just to say hi. I went with somebody that was working. So after we graduated, he was still there. And then we went together to the office. And then as I entered, because the man cannot recognize my face, he was like, yes. And I'm like, sir, it's me. And I said my name, that I've graduated. And I said, I didn't know that you're the one. I thought it was all these students. And in my head, I'm like, so let's even imagine it's even a year one student. Is that how they deserve to be treated? Why are you making your students feel like they're a burden to you? Students cannot come and tell you, oh, this is what they're going through. It's a bit, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying all of them were like that. I had like really great lecturers as well when I was in a lab, but some of them were just not. They placed more emphasis on people being afraid of them than actually people being inspired by them or people actually learning from them. So I did some courses in Faculty of Arts. I knew some particular lecturers that that they really inspired me, and I really liked the way they taught, and they were approachable. So it's possible to be like that. I remember one time while I was still in Faculty of Education, I saw a result and I just knew that it was a C, and I just knew that I could never get a C. I just knew worst case it had to be a B. So I summoned up courage and I went to the office, and as I entered the office, thank God people that knew me were in the office, and they were like, Bokini, I would take by Abi Kilo Shele. And then I was like, no, actually I saw a C, and they screamed like, CK. So I think it was that made the woman say, okay, let her check. So she checked and she found out that it was a B, and she corrected it. That same day, I think later in the day, I saw that she had put up something on the notice board saying that if you feel like your result is not correct, you should come and she will check it and she can rectify it. So seeing that, it really gave me hope. So not all of them are bad, or not all of them are not approachable. It's just that a larger percentage of lecturers just feel like when they are coming like this, you should be running this way. It's not that deep, Education should not be based on fear. When you are giving your coursework, in the process of you actually doing it, you can go back to your lecturers for feedback. I always felt it was a bit funny. It felt like cheating. Not like they tell you the answers, but they kind of give you advice on, okay, I think you can go this direction. I think you can add this. I'm not seeing a lot of referencing. I'm just giving examples. And I'm always like, is this allowed? It was a shock to me. Your teachers actually give you feedback on work that you're still doing. The only time we ever get that, or the only time I ever got that, let me speak for myself, was when I was doing my project. So you take your chapter 1, you check your chapter 2 and that was the only time we ever got that kind of feedback. But normally, once they give you assignment or test, you submitted it, that's the end. And also, I never had any exams. Everything I did was coursework. So literally do your assignments from home and then submit it. And all of the submissions were online. So that one, if you miss submission, you cannot go and say, I beg sir, please sir, I did not. Even the lecturer cannot help you, because at that point, the portal is closed. So I remember they used to advise us then and say, make sure that you submit something to keep the portal open, so that even if you fail, you have the opportunity to rewrite it. But once that portal closes without you submitting anything, then you have to wait till the next year, right? So that was another shock, the fact that all the submissions are online. Nobody has control over the submissions except maybe the IT guys, but literally even your lecturers do not have control over it. And also, we submitted our assignments anonymously, which was also weird. So we would only write our student number and not names, because they were trying to avoid bias. I mean, that's a good thing, but I'm just not used to it. The level of academic writing in the UK, oh my God. When we resumed, we actually had a course that was dedicated to teaching us about academic writing. I think they just knew that we're going to need it. Back in my uni days, I did a bit of academic writing, but not as advanced as what I did during my master's, because we didn't use that Turnitin software to check for plagiarism or whatever. You do your research and then you reference at the end of your work and then you submit and you're good to go. But now there's so much emphasis on paraphrasing, rewriting, using your own words. They just don't want you copying what someone has said and just pasting it verbatim. So the emphasis on, referencing, everybody just knew about plagiarism and we're like, okay, nobody's trying to, because plagiarism is like an actual offense. Like, they sit people on the panel to address plagiarism issues. Like, that's how crazy it is. It's not just like, oh, they will fail you. No, you will face a panel. So that was another shock for me. Like, oh my gosh, I wasn't used to that. But I'll say, like, at the end of that course, I think everybody just already had a grasp of what it was, and we're able to now apply it to our subsequent work. They also give you marking criteria. So they will tell you, if you give me this, you get a 70. If you give me this, you get a 60, or let's say a B. If this is missing, this is missing, you're gonna fail. So literally, you have no excuse, because they've told you what they require from you. For each course, they will give you a marking criteria for your assessments. Our lectures were usually long. Oh, I forgot to talk about that. The lectures are long, sometimes like 3 hours. So we would have like a break in between. And then I remember we had like a 5 minutes break. And then I saw my lecturer, a doctor, on the queue. So he was getting, I think, sandwich and coffee or something. And he was on the queue. And I looked at it and it was like a strange sight to behold, because I have never seen it. Another shock that I experienced was electronic attendance. This thing where you say, oh, sign for me, or more. It's not possible. So when you get to your class, there's a place where you tap your school ID and it registers that you are in that class. And then after the class, the lecturer will put it up. It will show all the faces and it will be ticked. So if your face is ticked and then they call your name and you're not there, there'll be problems. So you can't even say, oh, let me give my ID card to someone to tap in for me. That would be like it will be a serious case. Because the thing about that place is that there are certain things that you might feel like it's not a big deal, but they consider it a moral defect, a character defect, and they always take it seriously. So attendance is very compulsory. I know that a lot of international students like to go to work, they like to go for shifts instead of going to school. Me, I didn't have problem with attendance because me, I like school on my own, so I was always going. But every time we do that electronic attendance thing, I would just always be like surprised. So these people know. So when you're not in school, they know. Once you tap in your ID card, they know you're in school. So that was interesting. It was different. Like I said before, the lecturers were very approachable. You know, they were easygoing. I remember my dissertation compared to my final year project. Okay, so my project supervisor in Unilag wasn't bad. You know, I think at first he didn't know who I was. He didn't know me, so he just thought maybe I was like unserious. Then at the point where I told him that, sir, I'm actually on a 4 point, he was like, really? They sent a 4-pointer to me to supervise. I think it was at that point that his behavior kind of changed. Before, it was a bit tough to communicate with him, but after that point, we got on like really smoothly, so it wasn't all bad. But compared to my dissertation experience in the UK, like I would literally schedule meetings with my supervisor. He was a doctor. He would come on the meetings. I would talk to him, tell him what I've been writing, show him, send him my draft. He would correct it, give feedback, and then I'll work on it again. We'll have other meetings. So we scheduled like a lot of meetings, even though they're not very long, but they're like purposeful meetings where at every point, at every chapter, we are talking about what I can improve, what I can do better. It was very supportive. I think at some point he was really impressed. He was like, you know that you would be a good candidate for a doctorate. And I was smiling. I was like, yes, I've thought about it, but maybe sometime later in the future I'll consider doing a doctorate. But my project experience, my dissertation experience was very different. It was very smooth. It was hard though. Don't forget the whole referencing. You have to reference everything. You have to be scared that you're not plagiarizing. So I was always checking my work, return it in. But even with all that stress, I never received any form of stress from my tutors. There were different points where even other lecturers came in to help. So maybe there's something, maybe you're doing a particular chapter and they see that, oh, this chapter is this person's strong point. They can send you there and say, take your chapter, whatever, to this person, let her have a look at it, and then she can give you advice. So that happened as well. So during my dissertation, I received a lot of support and I got a distinction. So yeah, I remember one time, I think I was in year 3 or year 2. It's either year 2 or year 3. We had this course, you know, these general courses where the whole faculty takes it. The man had finished teaching. I had a question and then I asked him. He answered the question, like very grudgingly. And then he said after he had answered the question, does anybody have any more sensible question? So to imply that my question was not sensible, mind you, I was one of the best students in my class. At some point, I had the highest GPA in my class. There is no way my question could have been stupid. But honestly, how stupid can the question have been? And the funny thing is, people in that class sitting quietly, they will not ask the question that time. Oh, they don't understand. It's when the man has now gone. All of them will now start saying, oh, you one day, or whoever they want to go and ask, do you understand what the man was saying? I don't understand. And me, I'm always looking at them like, okay, you didn't understand. Why did you not talk in class? But I can understand why they will not talk, because things like this can happen to you. When you're asking questions and they look at you like stupid, which goes back to my previous point where there should not be fear in a classroom. A classroom should be a place of learning and encouraging interaction. One thing that those UK lecturers did is that they never made any question look stupid. Even what you as a student, you are looking at your fellow student asking the question and you're saying, what kind of question is that? The way they will respond, you can see the empathy, you can see that understanding that this person probably, has a different educational background and they take their time to answer everything. I never for once got any impression that they thought anyone was stupid. And these people I'm talking about, they are very brilliant lecturers that know their onions, very brilliant educators, but the humility was just out of this world. And I always say, and I'll keep saying, the best time that I had in the UK was when I was still in school. That was my best moment in all my 3 years. That 1 year that I spent in BCU was the highlight of my whole experience. Anyway guys, that is the end of today's video on the culture shocks that I experienced in the uni setting. If anything that I'm saying sounds familiar, make sure you drop a like, a comment. If there's anything I missed, also drop a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.